I was in a bone scan machine because initially I had a problem with my hips and a groin injury that wouldn't heal. And so at that time we were still looking at my abdomen and my pelvis. And I was laying in the bone scan machine, and the technician just casually made a comment about, well, have they found your source tumor yet? And when she said it, it still brings emotion. Like, I felt this shock run up my body, and it was like, oh my God, she just told me it is for sure cancer, and it's in 2 places. It was revealed that the cancer was sensitive to estrogen, progesterone, and it had a Herceptin 2 marker. The source tumor wasn't very large, but it was aggressive. And by the time it was discovered, it had already metastasized to my hip bones. As a matter of fact, the pain in my leg was the first indicator that there was a problem. I am one woman among hundreds of thousands of women who are learning to be courageous and to overcome and to live in the face of cancer. My name is Jan. I was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer in June of 2009. Well, I guess the very first memory that I have is the doctor saying something about suspicious for a tumor, and then he left the room, and I remember just laying back on the examination table and the ceiling tiles coming up, and the very first thought, honestly, that crossed my mind was, thank God I have insurance. That was the very first thought I had. And then just quickly followed by thoughts about my children. I definitely remember just the sensation of having the wind sucked out of my lungs, like definitely as a sucker punch or something that stops you mid-stride. And then as you begin to breathe again, there's this 1 million questions that circle your mind. There's all these what ifs and thoughts and impacts, and if you have any kind of strategy about your thinking, like you're looking ahead and it's, red lights everywhere. And I left the doctor's office that day, scheduled the following Monday. That was on a Thursday, and the following Monday for some additional bone scans and procedures, and that was a stressful weekend. And I spent a lot of time with my husband that weekend just talking about and coming to grips with, this is probably the real deal. Like I knew before I knew. So I started chemo in the fall, and I had 7 rounds of the traditional adriamycin, Cytoxan, Taxotere. I did Avastin and Herceptin. Of course, I had all of the nausea drugs and the Benadryl and the steroids. It was an all-day procedure every 3 weeks. But I found the chemo chair to be really not such a bad place. Like, for me, I learned to think about chemo as a artificial immune system. If my own immune system wasn't going to do the job, then chemo was going to be an immune system for me. And rather than dreading all the side effects or thinking about how hard it might be, I chose to just think about it as my friend and my ally. As soon as I came home from the hospital that day and I knew what I was dealing with, Mark and I went into the bedroom and we shut the door, and we agreed we needed to tell our children first. So we called in our 19-year-old daughter, and her name is Ashley, and I shared with Ashley what was going on. And that was difficult all by itself, because Ashley and I walked through the loss of one of my very best friends in 2006 from breast cancer. Luke was 12 at the time, and Luke was very sensitive, and I remember Luke giving me a hug and crying for a moment and asking a couple of simple questions like, when are you going to go to the doctor, something like that. Again, kind of gentle processing, and we just took our time and we got through it. Some of my favorite stories are about John and his friends. One of the first things that happened in the first few weeks is it was summertime when I was diagnosed, and he and his friends all shaved their heads in honor of me. And some of them didn't shave their heads but put my initials in their hair. And they gathered up one afternoon at somebody's house and had a hair shaving party in my honor. And that, blessed my socks off. And it blessed my son. The thing that Matthew did for me is that was late at night. It was getting to be in the evening. And I went to bed that night before the rest of the family. I was so exhausted. And it's typical for me. I woke up early the next morning and I wandered into the kitchen. And down at the end of the bar where Matthew would normally eat a bowl of cereal in the morning were some papers and some magic markers. And laying on the counter was a little sheet of paper, and he had done up like a little poster, and it said, "She will survive." I realized that my family needed me. I realized I had some things I wanted to do that I wasn't finished with yet. And I realized that if I didn't get a grip on fear, it was going to kind of get a grip on me. I learned that there was something inside me that once I realized how important it was for me to move through the process, that gave me the courage that I'd never had before. Like something kind of warrior-like arose in me, and I just wasn't willing to lay down. So don't let fear keep you from moving forward. Don't let it steal your joy in the season. Don't let it make you dread what's to come. Don't let it talk to you about how hopeless it might be, or how the fight's too big, or how it might take too much, or you won't have the resources, or whatever you're afraid of. In a way, you have to sort of just do it in spite of the fear. And then the fear becomes, a catalyst for courage.